Queen Zivera sat on her throne, her sharp claws tapping against the cold metal of her armrest. Her golden eyes glowed in the dim light of the war chamber. Around her, the high commanders of the Excelsior Dominion stood in silence, waiting for her judgment. "They are weak," she said at last, her voice smooth and confident. "Humans are nothing but scavengers in the void. They're warriors. Legends, nothing more." One of her commanders, a tall, armored warrior named Kristak, lowered his head. "But, my queen, the reports from the Velkar system." "I have heard them," Zivera interrupted, her mandibles clicking in irritation. "A single human against an entire battalion. Absurd. What do you take me for? A fool." The war chamber fell silent. No one dared to challenge her. The Excelsior had conquered thousands of worlds. They crushed entire civilizations under their rule. To them, humans were nothing special, just another species to be conquered, another world to add to their empire. And yet, the reports were troubling. A colony on the edge of human space had fallen easily, just as expected. The Excelsior had landed, wiped out the defenses, and claimed it for the Dominion. But then, something strange had happened. Their soldiers started disappearing. At first, it was just a few scouts. Then, whole squads vanished without a trace. Patrols would leave their outposts and never return. Even the security drones recorded nothing, just static and empty corridors where soldiers once stood. Whispers spread among the Excelsior ranks. A ghost walked among them. A shadow in the dark, a human warrior. Of course, Zivera did not believe in ghosts. She leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Send more troops," she commanded. "Burn every human hiding in the ruins. Tear apart their shelters. If there is a warrior among them, let him show himself." Kristak hesitated. His clawed fingers tightened around the hilt of his plasma blade. "We already sent reinforcements, my queen." Zivera's gaze darkened. And Kristak did not meet her eyes. They never returned. A hush fell over the chamber. Even the strongest among them felt a cold shiver run down their spines. Zivera straightened. This was no longer an annoyance. This was an insult. "Who is he?" she demanded. "This human warrior. What do we know?" Kristak hesitated, then pulled up a holographic display. A single name flickered into view. Commander Darius Voss. Zivera studied the name, unimpressed. And why should I fear this one? He was part of a human special forces unit, Kristak explained. They called themselves Ghosts of Terra. They were trained for impossible missions, stealth, sabotage, deep infiltration. He hesitated, but his squad was wiped out. He is the last one. Zivera smirked. The lone survivor. That makes him desperate, not dangerous. Kristak's mandibles tightened. "With respect, my queen, we thought the same about humans before they destroyed the Xenar fleet." Zivera's smirk faded. She remembered that battle. The Xenar fleet had been unmatched in firepower. And yet, human tactics had turned their strength into weakness. The entire fleet had been shattered. She clenched her claws. "What has this Voss done?" Kristak's voice was grim. "He's hunting us." Zivera's eyes flashed. Kristak continued. "He doesn't attack head-on. He waits. He watches. He strikes when we least expect it. Supply routes are being cut. Communication towers are going dark. He's moving through the shadows, picking us apart piece by piece." Zivera's claws dug into the armrest. "And you tell me this now?" Kristak hesitated. "I did not believe it myself, until I saw what he left behind." He gestured, and another image flickered on the screen. The destroyed Excelsior outpost. The walls were scorched, the defenses dismantled. But the most terrifying part was the message. Carved into the metal, deep and clear, were 3 words in the human language. "I am coming." The chamber grew colder. For the first time, Queen Zivera felt something she had never known before. Doubt. But she pushed it away. This was still one human, one warrior. No matter how skilled, He could not defeat an empire. Zavara rose from her throne, her voice sharp and commanding. This ends now. We will set a trap. Spread rumors of a human resistance in the colony's capital. Make it known that we hold the last survivors there. If this, Voss, truly exists, he will come for them. Christak bowed. As you command. Zavara turned away, staring at the holographic map of the battlefield. Humans were fragile. They were weak. But as she looked at the message Voss had left behind, she could not shake the feeling that, for the first time in her life, she had underestimated her enemy. The Excelsior Dominion had fought many wars. They had crushed civilizations, burned cities, and broken the wills of countless enemies. But now, something was wrong. Their soldiers were afraid. The invasion of the human colony should have been simple. The first assault had wiped out human defenses, leaving nothing but scattered survivors. Yet, as the days passed, their victory felt less like a triumph and more like a trap. The humans were supposed to be weak, so why were the Excelsior warriors dying? Christak marched through the ruined streets of the colony's capital, his claws clicking against the cold ground. The air smelled of smoke and metal. The once thriving human settlement was now little more than rubble, its buildings half destroyed by orbital bombardments. He should have felt victorious. Instead, his antennae twitched with unease. Something was watching them. Behind him, a squad of Excelsior soldiers moved in formation, their weapons raised. Their armor, usually polished and proud, was scratched and dented. They had all seen the same thing. Empty watchtowers, silent outposts, soldiers disappearing without a trace. The humans should have surrendered by now. But instead, they had vanished into the shadows. Christak tightened his grip on his plasma rifle. Stay alert. We are being hunted. One of the younger warriors, Velkanar, clicked his mandibles nervously. By what commander? The human forces were broken. Christak stopped and turned to him. No, we broke their defenses. We did not break them. The squad fell silent. The only sound was the wind whistling through the ruined streets. Christak glanced at the sky, where the Excelsior warships hovered like silent gods, watching over the battlefield. Their dominion over this world should have been complete, and yet the enemy still remained. He turned to his soldiers. The Queen has set a trap. We have spread rumors that human survivors are hiding here. The warrior, Voss, will come for them. Velkanar hesitated. If he exists. Christak narrowed his golden eyes. He exists. Velkanar fell silent. The squad moved forward, their steps cautious. The streets were too quiet. Every broken window felt like a watching eye. Every ruined alley felt like the perfect place for an ambush. Then they heard it. A faint sound. A metallic clink. Christak raised his fist, signaling his troops to stop. His antennae twitched. The sound had come from up ahead, beyond a wrecked human transport vehicle. He motioned for 2 warriors to flank left and another 2 to the right. They moved quickly, rifles raised. Silence. Then, a single red light flickered from the wreckage. Christak's eyes widened. Get back. Boom. The explosion tore through the street. The blast sent dust and fire into the air, throwing Excelsior warriors off their feet. Christak hit the ground hard, his armor shielding him from the worst of the impact. He pushed himself up, coughing, as his vision cleared. The street was filled with smoke. Velkanar groaned beside him, his armor scorched. It was a trap. Christak's mandibles clenched. Yes, and we walked right into it. A shadow moved in the smoke. Christak spun around, rifle raised, too slow. A flash of steel, and the Excelsior warrior to his left collapsed, his throat slit cleanly. The others barely had time to react before gunfire rang out. Silenced shots. Precise. Deadly. The humans were supposed to be gone. The battle was supposed to be over. Yet here, in the burning ruins, a single warrior was slaughtering them. Chris Tack fired blindly into the smoke, his plasma rounds burning through the dust. His soldiers did the same, but the enemy was already gone. Footsteps behind him. He turned, too late. A powerful impact struck his chest, sending him crashing to the ground. His rifle was kicked away. A figure loomed over him, a human, clad in dark armor, his face hidden behind a battle-worn helmet. His movements were silent, controlled. His very presence felt like a storm waiting to strike. Chris Tack gasped. Voss. For a moment, neither moved. The warrior studied him, his stance calm, almost effortless. Chris Tack realized, in that instant, why the others had feared him. This was no ordinary soldier. This was a predator. Your queen, Voss said, his voice quiet but filled with cold certainty. She thinks we're weak. Chris Tack could barely breathe. Voss leaned closer. Tell her she's wrong. Then, the human moved, swift as lightning. Chris Tack felt a sharp pain in his side before darkness swallowed him. Hours later, Queen Zavara sat in her throne room, her golden eyes fixed on the battered figure before her. Chris Tack had been found outside the capital, barely alive. His armor was slashed, his weapons missing. He had been left there, deliberately. And on his chest, carved into his own armor, were 3 words. I am here. Silence filled the chamber. The other commanders shifted uneasily. For the first time in her reign, Queen Zavara felt something new. Not anger, not irritation, but something colder. Something she had never felt before. Fear. The Excelzor Dominion had faced many enemies. Some fought with powerful warships. Others had mighty armies. But never before had they faced something they could not see. And now, an entire battalion had been reduced to silence. Queen Zavara sat on her throne, claws tightening around the armrest. Before her, Chris Tack knelt, still weak from his wounds. His armor was ruined, the deep scratches on his chest a reminder of the message left behind. I am here. The words haunted her. She had thought human warriors were myths, exaggerated stories told by lesser species to give themselves false hope. But now, a single human had challenged her entire army. Voss was no myth. He was real, and he was winning. Zavara leaned forward, her golden eyes locked onto Chris Tack. Tell me exactly what happened. Chris Tack hesitated. He was one of her strongest commanders. Yet now he looked shaken. He waited for us, he said finally. His voice was quiet, almost unsure. The moment we let our guard down, he attacked. He used the shadows, the ruins, the very battlefield itself. Zavara's claws clicked against the throne. And you saw him. Chris Tack's mandibles twitched. For only a moment, he took a breath. He is not like us. He does not fight with numbers. He does not fight for survival. His voice dropped lower. He fights to destroy. The war chamber fell silent. Zavara studied him, her sharp mind processing every word. Then she spoke. I will not let a single human defy the Dominion. Her voice was cold, absolute. If he hides in the shadows, then we will burn them away. She turned to her second-in-command, General Vekrax. I want every ruined building scanned, every tunnel sealed. Deploy aerial hunters. Use thermal vision. If he is still breathing, I want to know where. Vekrax saluted, and when we find him, Zavara's eyes burned with fury. We crush him. The hunt begins. Voss watched from a rooftop as the Excelzor forces spread through the colony. Their search parties moved in tight formations, scanning every alley and ruin. He smirked beneath his helmet, finally taking me seriously. He adjusted his rifle, scanning the area through his scope. The Excelzor were strong, but they fought like an army. Orderly, predictable. Voss was something else entirely. He moved with the storm. He struck like lightning. He disappeared like smoke. And now, the hunt had begun. He spotted a patrol moving through the marketplace ruins. 5 warriors, armored, armed with plasma rifles. Too slow, too loud. Voss picked his first target. A single, silenced shot. The Excelsior warrior dropped before the others even realized what happened. Confusion. Panic. Voss struck again. A second shot. Another soldier fell. The remaining 3 turned wildly, their weapons firing into the shadows. Voss was already gone. By the time they found his last position, all 5 of them were down. One by one. Fear spreads. Hours passed. The Excelsior continued their search, but now something was different. They were slower, more hesitant. Their formations broke apart. The once mighty warriors of the Dominion now whispered among themselves. They were being hunted, and they knew it. Queen Zavara watched the reports from her command center. Each squad sent into the ruins had suffered the same fate. Soldiers vanished, weapons left behind. The only sign of their deaths was the echo of silenced gunfire. Her fury burned. "This cannot be," she snarled. "No single warrior is this powerful." But the truth was undeniable. Darius Voss was not fighting an army. He was erasing it. She turned to General Vekrax. "Deploy the Koran beasts." A murmur spread through the war room. The Koran beasts were bioengineered predators, used only in the most extreme cases. 8 feet tall, covered in thick, chitinous armor, they could see in darkness and track movement with unmatched precision. Vekrax hesitated. "The beasts will attack anything that moves." Zavara's mandibles twitched. "Then they will do exactly what I need them to." The predator becomes the prey. Voss crouched in a ruined tower, reloading his rifle. The Excelsior were finally learning. They were pulling back, moving differently. Good. That meant they were afraid. Then he heard it. A deep guttural growl. Voss tensed, raising his weapon. This was new. He activated his visor's thermal scanner. Through the ruins, he saw them. Large, heavily armored, moving on all 4s with unnatural speed. Their bodies pulsed with an eerie glow beneath their plated exoskeletons. Koran beasts. Voss exhaled slowly. He had expected the Queen to escalate things. He just didn't expect this. The beasts moved in a pack, their glowing eyes scanning the shadows. Voss stayed perfectly still. One of the creatures lifted its head, sniffing the air. Then, without warning, it charged. Voss moved. He rolled just as massive claws ripped through the wall behind him. The entire structure shook from the impact. Fast. Too fast. Voss fired 3 shots. Direct hits. The beast barely flinched. It lunged again. Voss threw himself backward, landing hard. Dust filled the air as the beast smashed through the ruins. This wasn't like fighting Excelsior soldiers. This was something else entirely. For the first time in this war, Voss was the one being hunted. But fear had no place in his mind. Survival was all that mattered. He took a deep breath, gripping his blade. The rifle wouldn't be enough. If he was going to survive this, he would have to fight like a beast. Darius Voss had faced many enemies. Excelsior warriors, elite assassins, war machines. But this was different. The Koran beast crouched low, its glowing red eyes locked onto him. Its exoskeleton gleamed in the dim light, thick as armor, pulsing with alien energy. The creature's claws, long and razor-sharp, twitched in anticipation. It didn't just see him. It felt him. Voss tightened his grip on his combat knife. His rifle was nearly useless against this thing. Plasma rounds barely scratched its hide. He exhaled slowly. If bullets wouldn't work, he'd have to get creative. A battle of instincts. The beast lunged. Voss rolled aside as massive claws slammed into the ground where he had stood. Dust and debris exploded around him. No hesitation, no wasted movements. The Koran beast whirled, faster than anything that size had the right to be. It slashed again. Voss dodged, barely escaping the deadly swipe. He moved, weaving through the ruins, using the environment as his shield. The beast followed, relentless. Voss's mind worked quickly. It's fast, strong, but how smart is it? His visor analyzed its movements. The creature relied on instinct. It chased him like a predator, but it wasn't thinking like a soldier. That was its weakness. Voss spotted his opportunity. A half-collapsed building nearby, barely holding itself together. Perfect. He sprinted toward it. The beast roared and gave chase, closing the distance. As soon as Voss reached the structure, he leaped onto a broken beam, using it as leverage to launch himself upward. He caught hold of a higher ledge and pulled himself up in a single fluid motion. The beast lunged, slamming into the support beams below. The structure groaned. Cracks spread through the walls. Then, boom, the entire section of the ruins collapsed. The beast snarled as it was buried beneath tons of debris. Voss landed on the edge of a nearby rooftop, breathing hard. He watched the rubble shift, dust filling the air. Then, slowly, the Koran beast crawled free. It was injured now, bleeding, but alive. Voss smirked. Tough little thing, aren't you? Meanwhile, back in the Excelsior command center, Queen Zivara watched through the eyes of the beast's tracking unit. The Koran beasts were supposed to be unstoppable, yet this human had wounded one. Vekrak stood beside her, his mandibles twitching. He adapts too quickly. Zivara's claws tapped against her throne. Her mind worked in sharp calculations. Then we make sure he doesn't have time to adapt. She activated the comms. Deploy the second wave. More monsters join the hunt. Voss was already moving, keeping his distance from the injured beast. Then he heard it. A deep, echoing growl, followed by another. He turned. From the shadows, 2 more Koran beasts emerged. Their glowing eyes locked onto him, their bodies moving with terrifying precision. Voss clenched his jaw. 3 of them now. This was bad. 1 had been manageable. 3? That was a death sentence. They circled him, cutting off his escape. The original beast, still wounded, let out a low, guttural snarl. It wanted revenge. Voss quickly scanned his surroundings. He needed a plan. Fast. Then his gaze landed on a broken pipeline in the ruins nearby. Steam hissed from the cracks. The pressure inside was unstable. A trap. He adjusted his stance, subtly moving toward it. The beasts followed, step by step. Closer. The lead beast lunged. Voss jumped aside at the last second, slashing his combat knife across its eye as it passed. The creature howled in rage, stumbling back. The other 2 beasts attacked. Voss ducked as one swiped at him, the force of its claws slicing through a nearby metal beam like paper. He fired his last few rounds, not at the beasts, but at the pipeline. The bullet struck the weak point. The explosion was instant. Superheated steam burst out, engulfing the creatures in a blinding cloud. The beasts screeched, their thick hides sizzling under the extreme heat. Voss didn't wait. He ran. Through the chaos, through the smoke, through the ruins. The beasts howled behind him, struggling to regain their bearings. He had bought himself time. But not much. The final stand. Voss reached an abandoned human bunker deep within the ruins. He checked his gear. Low ammo. No explosives left. Only his knife and his instincts. He exhaled. This is it. The ground trembled. They were coming. Voss took a deep breath. Fear was pointless. He had one goal. Survive. The first beast burst through the bunker wall. Voss moved. A blade flashed. Blood spilled. A roar of pain. Then the second. Voss twisted, using the narrow space to his advantage. The beast's size made them clumsy in tight areas. A slash. A dodge. Another strike. The third beast crashed through the doorway. Voss barely avoided its massive claws. He spun behind it, stabbing deep into the joint of its armor plating. It roared, thrashing wildly. Voss ripped the knife free, then plunged it into the creature's throat. A final, choked growl, then silence. The beast collapsed. 2 left. Voss turned, his breath heavy, his body bruised but steady. The fight wasn't over yet. The bunker walls shook as the 2 remaining Koran beasts prowled forward. Their glowing eyes burned with rage, their claws scraping against the metal floor. Darius Voss stood still, his breathing steady. His body ached from the battle, but his mind remained sharp. 1 beast lay dead at his feet, its thick blood pooling around his boots. 2 more to go. The first beast, the wounded one, growled low and deep. It wanted revenge. The second, untouched and still full of strength, stepped forward, its massive body blocking the only exit. Voss clenched his combat knife, his last real weapon. His rifle was empty. His grenades were gone. But that didn't matter. He had fought worse odds before. The dance of death. The wounded beast struck first. It lunged, its claws sweeping toward Voss's chest. He ducked, rolling to the side as the creature smashed into the bunker wall. The impact sent cracks spidering across the metal. The second beast was already moving, using the distraction to strike from behind. Voss spun just in time. He brought up his knife, slashing across its face. The blade met resistance but cut deep enough to draw thick, black blood. The creature howled in pain. Voss didn't stop. He lunged forward, using his momentum to drive the knife into the beast's neck. But the creature twisted at the last second. Instead of a clean kill, the blade scraped against its armored hide. The beast lashed out, its claws catching Voss's shoulder. Pain shot through him. He stumbled back, gripping his arm. Blood dripped down, staining his sleeve. Stay focused. Stay moving. The wounded beast charged again, its movements slower but no less deadly. Voss sidestepped at the last second, using its own momentum against it. The creature crashed into the metal debris, getting momentarily stuck. He turned to the second beast, but it was already in the air, leaping straight at him. Voss barely had time to react. He threw himself backward as the massive creature landed inches away, its claws slicing through the air where his head had been. They're learning. They weren't just attacking wildly anymore. They were adapting. A desperate plan. Voss scanned the room, looking for anything he could use. Then he saw it. An exposed power conduit on the wall. High-voltage energy, still active. It was a risk, but he didn't have a choice. He ran toward it. The beasts followed. Voss reached the conduit and turned just as the first beast lunged. At the last second, he dodged. And the creature slammed straight into the power source. Electricity surged through its body. The bunker lit up with a blinding blue flash. The beast convulsed, its roars turning into shrieks of agony. Smoke rose from its charred skin. Then it collapsed. Dead. Voss turned, panting. 1 left. The final beast hesitated, watching its fallen packmate. Voss tightened his grip on his knife. "Come on," he muttered. "Let's finish this." The beast roared and charged. Voss met it head-on. The last kill. The battle was brutal. Voss moved fast, dodging and weaving, using the bunker's tight space to his advantage. The beast was powerful, but Voss was faster. He struck at weak points, joints, eyes, exposed flesh. Every cut slowed the creature down. But it was still standing. Voss knew he couldn't keep this up forever. His body was reaching its limit. Then he saw an opening. The beast lunged, its mouth wide, aiming to crush him in one final bite. Voss dropped low at the last second and drove his knife straight up into the roof of its mouth. The blade punched through flesh and bone, piercing deep into its brain. The beast spasmed. Then, with a final, shuddering breath, it collapsed. Dead. Voss fell to his knees, gasping for air. Blood dripped from his wounds. His entire body ached. But he was alive, and the Koran beasts were dead. The queen watches. From her war chamber, Queen Zivara watched in silence. 3 of her strongest creatures defeated by 1 human. Vekrax shifted uneasily beside her. "What are your orders, my queen?" Zivara's claws tapped against her throne. She had underestimated him. That would not happen again. She turned to her generals, her golden eyes burning with new determination. Prepare the next phase. If brute force couldn't kill Darius Voss, then she would break him another way. Darius Voss leaned against the cold metal wall of the ruined bunker, breathing heavily. His body ached, his wounds stung, but he was still standing. The corpses of the 3 Koran beasts lay scattered around him, their thick blood staining the floor. He had won, but the battle wasn't over. Voss knew that much. Somewhere out there, Queen Zivara was watching, studying him, planning her next move, and she wouldn't make the same mistake twice. The battlefield falls silent. For the first time in hours, the ruins were quiet. No more growling beasts. No more thunderous footsteps. Voss took a moment to check his wounds. His shoulder was slashed open, his ribs bruised, and his arms covered in cuts. Nothing fatal, but he wouldn't last long without proper treatment. He reached for his emergency medkit and injected a stim pack into his arm. Painkillers kicked in almost immediately, dulling the ache. It wasn't much, but it would keep him moving. His rifle was empty. His knife was slick with blood. He had no explosives left. Not great. He needed a new weapon, a plan, and fast. Because he knew they were coming. The Queen's strategy. Deep inside the Excelsior Command Center, Queen Zivara watched the battlefield closely. Her golden eyes narrowed as she observed the human survivor. He should be dead. Any other species would have fallen by now. But this one, this Darius Voss, he was different. He had defeated her Koran beasts. He had outmaneuvered her warriors. He had survived everything she had thrown at him. Zivara's claws tapped against the armrest of her throne. It was time to change tactics. If raw strength couldn't break him, then she would break his mind instead. She turned to her generals. Send in the Shadow Walkers. A new enemy appears. Voss was on the move again, navigating the ruined city with careful steps. He had to find an escape route, but the enemy had him boxed in. The Excelsior were good at that, turning a battlefield into a trap. He just had to find the weak spot. The problem: the ruins were too quiet. The silence pressed in, unnatural and heavy. Something wasn't right. Then, a whisper of movement. Voss barely had time to react. He spun, knife raised. A dark figure struck from the shadows. Fast, silent, deadly. Voss dodged at the last second, but the attacker's blade sliced across his arm, drawing fresh blood. He lashed out with his own knife, but the enemy had already vanished back into the darkness. Voss narrowed his eyes. Stealth units. The Excelsior's most dangerous assassins. Shadow Walkers. A battle in the dark. They came from every direction. Voss fought on pure instinct. A blade flashed from the left. He twisted, deflecting it with his forearm. Another strike from behind. He dropped low, sweeping the attacker's legs. They were fast, almost invisible in the darkness. But they weren't invincible. Voss grabbed the closest assassin and drove his knife deep into its throat. The alien choked, then collapsed. One down. The others hesitated. They weren't used to humans fighting back. Voss grinned, blood dripping from his lip. I see you now. The assassins hissed, then attacked again. But Voss had already adapted. He didn't fight them with brute force. He used their own tactics against them, moving through the shadows, striking fast, disappearing before they could counter. One by one, the Shadow Walkers fell, until only one remained. Voss stepped forward, his knife dripping alien blood. The assassin hesitated, then turned to run. Voss let him go. It would carry a message back to the Queen. Humans didn't break. The Queen's rage. In her throne room, Queen Zivara's claws clenched into fists. Her shadow walkers were dead. Darius Voss had survived yet again. Vekrax, her second in command, lowered his head. "Shall we send more troops, my queen?" Zivara's tail lashed behind her. No. Brute force had failed. Stealth had failed. But she had one last card to play. She leaned forward, her golden eyes glowing with dark amusement. If the human refuses to break. A cruel smile spread across her face. Then let us give him something to protect. The final move. Voss had barely caught his breath when his comlink crackled to life. A voice, weak, afraid. "Darius, is that you?" His blood ran cold. He knew that voice. Dr. Elise Carter. A scientist, a civilian, one of the few survivors from the first wave of attacks. She had been captured when the Excelsior invaded. And now she was bait. Voss's fists clenched. He had fought this war alone. He had survived against impossible odds. But this changed everything. The Queen thought she could use Elise as leverage. She thought Voss would surrender. She thought wrong. Voss wiped the blood from his face, took a deep breath, and set his sights on the Excelsior fortress. If they wanted him, they were about to get him. And he wasn't coming alone. He was bringing hell with him. Darius Voss stood at the edge of the ruined city, staring at the massive Excelsior fortress in the distance. Its dark towers reached toward the sky, glowing with eerie green energy. Inside, Queen Zivara waited, and so did Elise Carter. Voss clenched his fists. The Queen thought she had trapped him, thought that by taking Elise, she could control him. She was wrong. If they wanted to play games, he would end it his way, by burning the fortress to the ground. Infiltration begins. The Excelsior fortress was heavily guarded. Towering sentinels patrolled the outer walls, their weapons humming with deadly energy. Swarms of alien drones scanned the area for any intruders. But Voss didn't plan on sneaking in quietly. He planned on going through them. He moved fast, striking before they could react. The first guard barely had time to turn before Voss drove a combat knife into its throat. He grabbed the alien's weapon and opened fire. The energy rifle hissed, bright bolts of plasma tearing through the next two guards. Alarms blared across the fortress. Good. Let them come. Voss pushed forward, weaving through enemy fire, using every piece of cover. His stolen weapon overheated, so he switched to another from a fallen guard. Every time the Excelsior thought they had him pinned down, he struck harder, faster, deadlier. Inside the fortress, the moment he stepped inside, Voss knew the real challenge had begun. The corridors were tight, filled with heavy armored troops. The Excelsior were relentless, firing from all sides, forcing him to take cover behind thick metal pillars. His rifle clicked empty. Voss dropped it, rolled forward, and grabbed an energy blade from a fallen warrior. The weapon hummed in his hands. Then, he charged. The first enemy swung, but Voss ducked, slicing across its chest in one smooth motion. He twisted, avoiding another strike, driving his blade deep into the next warrior's gut. Their heavy armor didn't matter. Their numbers didn't matter. Because Voss didn't stop moving, didn't stop fighting. He left a trail of bodies behind him as he pushed toward the heart of the fortress. Toward Elise, face to face with the Queen. The final door hissed open. And there she was. Queen Zivara stood at the center of a massive chamber, her golden eyes glowing with amusement. Elise Carter was there, trapped inside a containment field. Alive, but afraid. Voss stepped forward, gripping his energy blade tightly. Zivara tilted her head. Impressive. Voss said nothing. She continued, circling him. You are stronger than I expected. Faster, smarter, but you are still only human. He met her gaze, cold and unshaken. "And yet, I'm still standing." Zavera chuckled. "Yes, but tell me, how much longer?" The floor beneath him rumbled. A massive metal door opened, and a new enemy stepped forward. A royal guardian, 7 feet tall, covered in thick armor, wielding a massive war axe. Voss exhaled slowly. The real fight was about to begin. The final duel. The guardian charge. Voss barely dodged as the massive axe crashed into the floor, splitting metal like paper. He rolled to the side, slashing with his energy blade. The guardian blocked it with its gauntlet, then lashed out with a brutal kick. Voss was thrown across the chamber, hitting the ground hard. Pain exploded through his ribs. But he got up. He always got up. The guardian came again, swinging fast. Voss ducked under the blade, closing the distance. He drove his knife into the guardian's side, but the thick armor stopped most of the force. Not enough damage. The guardian roared and grabbed him by the throat, lifting him off the ground. Voss struggled, gasping for air. Then he saw it. A weakness in the armor, a small exposed joint near the shoulder. With his last bit of strength, he flipped his knife in his hand and stabbed deep. The blade sank in. The guardian let out a deafening roar. Voss twisted the knife, cutting deeper. The alien collapsed, taking him down with it. Voss rolled free, breathing hard. One enemy down. One more to go. The end of the queen. Zavera stared at him, her amusement fading. Voss took a step forward. For the first time, she looked uncertain. She raised her claws, preparing to fight. Voss didn't give her the chance. He moved faster than she expected, dodging her strike, getting inside her guard. Then, he drove his blade straight into her chest. Zavera gasped, her golden eyes wide in shock. She tried to speak, but then she fell, and it was over. A new dawn. Voss staggered to Elisa's containment field, disabling it with a flick of a switch. She fell into his arms, weak but alive. "You came for me," she whispered. Voss smirked, exhausted but victorious. Of course. The fortress shook. Without the Queen's command, the Xel'Zor forces were in chaos. The entire structure was collapsing. Voss grabbed Elisa's hand. Time to go. They ran, dodging falling debris, making their way to an escape shuttle. As they lifted off, the fortress exploded behind them, sending fire and smoke into the sky. Voss watched it burn. The war wasn't over, but this battle was won, and humanity had proven they would never break.